50,000 people used to live here. Now it's a ghost town.
Our so-called leaders prostituted us to the West, destroyed our culture, our economies, our honor.
U.S. Marines stationed on high alert were given the order to invade the small
Nikolai! Foreman said the crews are at Harry.
Just as they lay waste to our country, we shall lay waste to theirs.
You think this will stop the bloodshed?
Вы все равно скоро сдохнете.
We need to take him alive.
Every time I load up this game, it takes me back to Christmas 2011 when I got my first Xbox 360 with World at War and Modern Warfare. Yes, I know I'm a little late to the party. Of course, at the time I was obsessed with zombies, but that's not what this is about. This is about the one that brought the franchise into the mainstream, Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. Something I could never forget is the music and the menu sounds of the original Modern Warfare. Opening up, you can see your three options: multiplayer, arcade mode, and of course, new game, which I think is where we should start. But before we start the video, I would just like to say if you do enjoy the video, please leave a like, comment, subscribe, anything. It all would be amazing, and it's all free, and you could unsubscribe at any time. Thank you, and enjoy. The story takes place in 2011, where a civil war has been ignited between the Russian loyalists and ultranationalists, all while a group led by Khalid al-Assad takes control of a Middle Eastern country, but we will get to that later because it's time to meet our first playable character, John Soap McTavish, who is trained by the one and only Kyle Gaz Garrick. After finishing training, it's time to meet Captain John Price and run the CQB, which leads to our beloved Soap going into the first of two missions, with the first one being onto a ship sailing across the Bering Strait. The SAS infiltrate the ship, neutralize all Russian forces on board, and secure a nuclear device just for the ship to be sank by enemy MiGs and narrowly escaping after jumping into a helicopter and Soap being grabbed by Captain Price. The second mission leads to a battle between the Russian military and ultranationalists with an ambush led by Kamarov, where SAS take out many on their way to rescue Nikolai, an informant who works with the ultranationalist group. After rescuing Nikolai, we meet our American counterpart, Sergeant Paul Jackson, who is invading the country taken over by al-Assad, along with the rest of his platoon including Lieutenant Vasquez, on a mission to capture al-Assad, which ends with them being tricked by an ongoing broadcast that was pre-recorded and left to mislead the West. Later they engage in combat to clear the city around a broken down M1 Abrams tank called Warpig. Sergeant Jackson pushes ahead and destroys an anti-air gun and plants a beacon to call in a helicopter to neutralize all enemies left in the buildings along the far side of the bog. As they debrief, we meet back up with Soap, who is flying over farmland and is shot down, which leaves both pilots dead and their group stranded and forced to fight through fields of enemies and destroy a helicopter before getting back up from an AC-130, which helps lead them through even more enemies into their extraction point. Throughout these missions, intel is gathered and al-Assad is believed to possess a nuclear weapon. With this knowledge, the US launches an attack on al-Assad's palace, and the USMC neutralizes al-Assad's ground forces, which ends not only with the rescue of a fallen helicopter pilot, but with the detonation of the nuclear weapon, wiping out the city and everyone in it. Although some assume al-Assad is dead, Captain Price refuses and raids tons of safe houses, finding al-Assad, beating him for information, answering his phone right before executing him, which revealed our protagonist for the rest of the game, Imran Zakhaev. Price then reveals after the fall of Chernobyl, Zakhaev profited from the spread of nuclear weapons and used this newfound wealth to bring in Soviet soldiers to create their ultranationalist group. He then reveals that he, along with his superior Captain Macmillan, were sent on a mission to assassinate Zakhaev, which left them sneaking through fields until they reach a hotel near the meeting place for one of Zakhaev's many deals. Sadly, Price has only managed to shoot off one arm and they are barely able to escape the enemy forces. Following the death of al-Assad, Soap and the rest of the platoon have have to fight off hordes of ultranationalists who came to avenge his death. After being pushed up the hill, the LZ was deemed too hot and they were forced to fight their way back down to the bottom where it all started. This is where all groups come together to try and capture Zakhaev's son Victor by taking the identities of many soldiers and killing those around him, but after an intense chase it ends with the son ending his own life. In range, Zakhaev takes control over a nuclear launch facility. This leads to a mission being launched to take back the facility, but first they have to rescue Griggs, and not soon after Zakhaev launches the nuclear missiles targeting the United States East Coast, which could have caused 41 million casualties. Pushing into the facility, our group fights many, including tanks, to make it to the control room itself, and Soap is the one to input the code that shuts down the missiles, causing them to explode over the ocean and leaving them to escape using military trucks and get chased down by not only other trucks, but also an Mi-24 Hind. As they try and escape, the Hind takes out the bridge, and it seems like the story is over. But after getting back up and fighting off the forces, the Hind comes down around to try and finish off whoever may be left. Gaz and Griggs are gunned down, but after a Loyalist missile hits the Hind, it causes Zakhaev to turn his back and slide an M1911 to Soap, who puts a bullet in all three attackers, and with Kamarov coming to help, the main story has come to a close. Finally, we reach the epilogue, where we have to fight through a double-decker airplane to reach a hostage, who we then jump out of the plane with. In the story, we run into tons of different weapons, anything from snipers to pistols we can use to mow down anyone in our path. For assault rifles, we have the M4A1, AK-47, G3, G36C, and the M16. In the LMG category, we have the M249 SAW, the RPD, and the M60. For SMGs, there's the MP5, Scorpion, AK-74U, Mini Uzi, and the P90. For those people who still like montages, there's the M40A3, M21, Dragunov, R700, and the Barrett 50 cal. For those who still live in the trenches of World War I, we have the W1200 and the M1014. And for those who can't reload in time, there's the M1911, Desert Eagle, USP-45, and the M9. These are all just naturally spawning or used in the campaign itself. Looking around the map can help you find some that may not be directly in your face, like others you often see sitting on tables or the hands of regular enemies. Also, when looking around for these weapons, you can come across probably one of the most recognizable collectibles in gaming, the Intel computers, left all around each level. If you happen to find all 30 or be like me and use a guide, you can unlock cheats. I'm not sure which are for the original Modern Warfare and which were added in MWR, but either way, it can be a fun way to spice up the campaign if you want to go back for a second playthrough. Or you could always up the difficulty, which is one of gaming's biggest challenges for a long time. At the beginning after completing the circuit, you are given a recommended difficulty, but you can always choose from Recruit being the easiest, being able to take shotgun shells and bullets like your Tombstone, and Veteran leaving you dead in 1 to 2 shots. The Veteran campaign used to be the biggest show of someone's true skill when talking in the schoolyard. Lastly, I want to talk about the graphics, and to me, it holds up surprisingly well. Of course, it's not perfect and nowhere near the graphics we have today, but it's aged as well as can be expected from an early game in the series. But this has always been a thing with COD. I don't think any of them necessarily look bad, but COD 4 in particular is still playable and enjoyable even for people who may not have grown up with these games like a lot of us did. Now that that is out of the way, I think it's time to talk about what is really important in any shooter or any game in general, the gameplay. But there isn't much to say. It's a Call of Duty game and it feels like it. It of course feels nothing like the newer games in the series, but this feel and movement is seen in all of the games pre-2014. And it makes sense for them to feel this way, because the engine was developed in-house by Infinity Ward and used across multiple games, and I believe they still make the engine used in the modern COD games. Everything feels relatively snappy and responsive when you think about other shooters where you're basically on ice. I think this movement and feel is what really gave COD a leg to stand on, especially when compared to other shooters and their main competition at the time, Battlefield, as Battlefield was more grounded in reality. COD filled a hole for a more arcade-style shooter, which wasn't really being filled by anyone else in the market, and this arcade feel really showed in the gunplay. The gunplay really showed how simplistic and fun an arcade shooter can be, especially when it comes to single player where anything is usable, and even in multiplayer where the guns and health system add to a more casual experience. There were tons of guns you could choose from, and with the addition of Create a Class, it left it open for players to choose what they wanted to use instead of having presets like in earlier iterations. The choices were seemingly endless. You could use any of the weapons from the base game in the multiplayer, and even pick different perks and attachments. I wish I could show you a lot of this, but as I'm on low level, don't have my old account anymore, I really can't. I would just work and grind and get gameplay that way, but on Xbox this game is seemingly dead, which is heartbreaking, but I can still talk about it, I guess. Let's start with the maps, which are taken directly from the campaign, which I think really brings something special, when you can see actual places you've been in with other characters you love in another light. Wetwork takes you back to your first actual mission, and Countdown takes you to one of the last. I think that alongside the weapons from single player really pushed the game farther, and so did all of the videos. The YouTube community for this game was absolutely massive. Thousands, if not tens of thousands of videos uploaded, with hundreds uploaded to this day. One thing that really stood out besides the playthroughs, guides, and commentaries were the montages. Montages of massive kill feeds, clutches, and anything you could think of, but this was the real start of the sniping community. There were some montages on older CODs, but this is where they really started to gain traction, and this game began the phenomenon we know today. They aren't as popular today, but are still a video style uploaded all the time. Watching one of your favorite players destroying full lobbies paired with great music was just magical, and what I really think brought the era of phase and optic that would absolutely explode in the games to come. We have one last thing to talk about, the remaster. The remaster is absolutely the best way to play the game in the modern day. Updated graphics, new cheats, and small gameplay enhancements really make it the best way to play. The multiplayer is also sort of live. Not really right now because of the release of Modern Warfare 2, but yeah, you can actually find a match from time to time. The major downside is that they added the dreaded supply drops. And if you had bought the map pack all those years ago, you had to buy it again. Luckily for the casual player, the supply drops don't hold anything exclusive because using salvage, you can purchase anything you want to. Granted, you would have to grind and it's not really worth it 6 years later, but it's there and it's something you can do if you want to do it. They also added a camo grind, which ended with Exclusion Zone, which I think is absolutely amazing looking, but sadly sticks out like a sore thumb. Overall, I think the remaster is the way to go, and especially since you could buy the Legacy Edition of Infinite Warfare for $13 and get both games, or even by itself, it's still under $20. I think it's worth the upgrade, but if you're like me and want the original and the remaster in your collection, the original is selling for under $5 in most places, so you could buy both for under $20. I think Modern Warfare is a game that will live on for years to come, and possibly go down as one of the largest gaming phenomenons in the Xbox 360's and PS3's lifecycle. I don't see the game going anywhere for a very long time, and with a lot more people possibly going back to relive the nostalgia, especially around its 15th birthday like me, I could see it being celebrated for a long time. This is all my opinion, and I may be looking at the game through rose-tinted glasses, but it is a game I will always recommend to people who haven't played COD before and need a place to start, or just a fun game to pull at nostalgia strings and pass some time with. I often use it as a quick, impactful story with characters I love, and really helps me with downtime or not knowing what to play, even though I have thousands of games at my disposal. Thank you for all the memories, and happy birthday. So I'm currently in the middle of editing the video you just watched, hopefully, and I just really wanted to say thank you to anybody who does decide to stop and subscribe or like or even watch the video, even give it 2 seconds of your time but click off because my voice is fucking annoying. I get it, but I just want to say thank you because the support even on my very first video was absolutely insane, and the others have not gotten that same effect. They have not done as well as the first one, but it's still really nice to see comments and people support, even though it might not necessarily be something they're interested in, and so thank you. Next video will be out in 2 weeks. I'm thinking about changing my upload day. Not quite sure yet. I might go for a Friday or a Saturday, because I feel like middle of the week is very weird, but I don't know. We'll see. Yeah. Thank you.